And hey, looks like we're live, and I'm sure there's nobody there yet, but that's okay. Let's see here. I'm going to start up my screen so I can maybe somebody pops in here. So I'm going to be here if anyone has to chime in, want to see what the fuss about. Again, I'm going to color on the pages here. We're going to go up to this one here and check on the different stuff. So I am just up here working on Forces page. It's going to come up on our Patreon, patreon.com ideal_comics. And it's the last part of the story. The first part of the story is, I guess we're doing publishing it weekly, I guess you'd say, on forcegoodevil.net. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and change that up there. I see there's some people that have tuned in to eyeball me. If you guys have questions, pop them up in the chat, and I will try to answer those. I might actually jump on the other platform so I can check it out. Okay, there are that. I don't have to. I can have two screens open. I'm doing this for about an hour and a half. Is my plan. So, Force of Good and Evil is, of course, the story of Chad and Greg, two best friends. One, Chad is kind of a bully, kind of a jock when we first meet him, and he is sent to superhero high school. Through an aptitude test. And then his buddy Greg, who is a hardcore nerd, is sent to villain school. And that's just kind of the score with all of that. So friends and partake on new adventures and all kinds of stereotypical stuff. Go from there. So, but it's kind of a, I don't know. It's a comedy. It's a dramedy. It's full of wacky characters. For this current story we're working on has got gobs and gobs of characters. I think 28 was the actual number of characters we have in this particular story. And we've been working on it about a year. Getting to the point where we're at with this page. It's been through a couple of rewrites. In the middle of all that, I thought I had it nailed down, and then I felt like we needed more characters and more interactions with all of that. So that's the story. The story. That's the scoop. That's the thing. Well, what's it? And I don't know a lot of action going on right now. I am distracted with trying to get the other screen going up here. That way I can keep an eye on it while I'm still working. And that's the bigger thing for me. But yeah. I was hoping that someone could make it and chat with me here, but I guess that's not going on. That's fine. That's fine. I think anyway. What the heck happened here? Here we go. My other tablet. So if something should come up, there you go. There you have it. So I'm going to go ahead and just get the color, get talking about the different stuff. And if anyone has questions, they have it. So this is Buckskin Boone. He is a hero extraordinaire from the Great High Plains. He's known little that color on him is not right. Oh, hey. Well, I might just actually in the chat, really. They buy that come on, pretty much. Excuse me. I'm just going to do that. So I have currently in the tank, and it needs finishes on it. I've got roughs for Buckskin Boone story that was co-plotted by myself and by Rolf Gardeau, and the pencils are by Rolf. We're looking forward to seeing that pan out. The roughs are by Rolf, but it needs a good finish hand. Rolf was working on it when he was shortly after his accident last year. So he knows we've talked about that. I want to get somebody to come in there and finesse it a little, but yeah, excited for the prospect of working that out. Oh, here we go. Oh, my God, here. Is there ever been an instance my lip piercing came in handy? Not that's suitable for public conversation. Let's just put it that way. Um, it's because someone kind of gets in the way eating sometimes, not hugely, not in a way that's a bother. Um, uh, um, or anything. Um, Man, what is going on? My thing is just being really squirrely. I have to restart. Um, it's erasing for some reason. Oh, hey, Captain, how's it coming? I am having. Okay, so it's just the tablet is being stupid then. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I actually got about halfway through your video on Wortham before I got distracted by doing some work today, and I haven't gotten back to that yet. But I really enjoyed it, and of course, I thought I probably would have in our multiple conversations on the topic. But yeah, I'm looking at some quality stuff. I think it's really weird too how boogeyman Wortham's been. I don't really understand that so much. I mean, I do. It's human nature, but it is at the same time. It's very strange to me um, how reliable the guy is, just for having an opinion. Um, I know his opinion is extreme and not one I agree with, but in a lot of ways, it's very early um, type of cancel culture stuff going on. I think with that, he was used as an excuse for other people to get canceled, and canceled himself. He was thoroughly upset. Which that's that's fascinating to me. That's the kind of stuff that just make your perk up. So I have it turned in as it's. Is it still going on? Is it still going on that I sound robot-y, or is that just the connection at that moment in time? I don't even know. Let me know. Um, it could be a USB conflict, which would be really stupid right now. But let me know, guys, what the situation on all of that is, because that would be a bummer for me. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure I'd know what to even do about that at this point. Unplug and replug. Oh, it's fixed now. Okay, awesome. Good, good, good. That is good to know. Very good to know. Give us welcome on. I think maybe my connection is really bad today. I don't know about that, but um, I'm having some weird stuff on the back end when I flip over to that screen to look. So I'm not 100% sure, but something's a little funky, and I'm not sure what it is. So color right now, the fairy woman is Titania, and she is sort of like our Wonder Woman, specifically a modern age Wonder Woman. She came to prominence in the 1980s. This is her daughter, the supervillainous Jagged Princess. Her presence at this whole event is sort of humorous, I guess you'd say. Jagged Princesses is. She's out of her element amongst all the hero students. Um, and if you guys follow Ideal Comics on Twitter, you might notice I put a little minor spoiler for the big thing. It's not really a spoiler, but Jagged Princess and Chad are involved in a long-term relationship, and um, and that's something that she keeps a secret from her superheroic mother. So, um, hmm. Fairy outfit is, of course, because the character was named for Titania, Queen of the Fairies, from Shakespeare's um, Midsummer Night's Dream. Interestingly enough, for those of you paying attention, of course, Midsummer's Night was just last weekend. So traditionally, my family has gotten together to do something fun for Midsummer's Night, but this year we really didn't. There's a lot of other life happening. So it was Father's Day. We were up in Cheyenne doing the Father's Day thing. That was part of that. My dad-in-law lives up there, so we were up there seeing family. Because of the COVID, it was kind of the first time we'd all gotten together since Christmas. So no bonfires, no staying up all night. Next day was a work day, all that kind of stuff. But still was a lot of fun. Oh, that is not what I wanted. Okay. Having trouble getting the special effects like I want for the wings. The last time I did this was on actually a different program, and that's part of that whole deal. So let's see. I'm learning clips a lot. Geez, I want to say January. Kind of familiar with the tools enough to make something of it, you know? Like, especially for forces, because it's a little faster doing flat colors. I think it actually accentuates the art style, which right now is very much of a hodgepodge between Rolf's, I guess I call it garage band Archie kind of look he's got going on, and the ink artist predominantly is my son Taliesin, and I'm very happy, especially with some of the later stuff, and I really enjoy his excuse me, just his flair on the ads and stuff. Got a whimsy in his style. He's doing pretty much finishes on this one here, and there we go. That's what we'll do. Okay. That gets what I want. Gives me exactly what I wanted on that one. So, but yeah. last name unknown. And Splice is a creator of a comic called Rock the Top. And I ran a randomly pretty much comics online. Just a hobby of mine. And varied. There's a lot of people's hopes and dreams that got put out there. I mean, I know I do that, right? So it's not like other people don't. But I've been doing this for so long. I love to see what other people were trying to bring out. You know what they were what stories they were trying to tell, and how some people were able to stick it out and make it part of their future, part of their life. I want to say livelihood, but just part of their ongoing, being. And some people it just doesn't happen. Some people, long term lost interest in it, or life got busy. Son and I have talked about it, and when he started Broccoli Top, he never finished. He was, in high school when he started. It was college when he worked on it, and life happens. Got busy with it, and felt like he got to the point. Also, he felt like the story was too, reductive. All right, forgive me, my brain is skipping for a second. The whole premise of Broccoli Top is that Jay Burst, the Broccoli Top character, is show you here on the thing. It's right here. It's Jay, and he wakes up one day in a world made out of animation shows, and kind of a thing going, and doesn't really know what to make of it. And he just ends up just trying to figure out life in his new paradigm, and try to find a way back home. And I just love the fish out of water and that concept. I also really loved his take on cliche and kind of his send up of that. I'm loving send up of that dynamic. And there's one particular joke where Dave is showing Broccoli Top, Jay Burst around, and the lunchroom at their anime high school, and a chicken steak monster erupts, from the whatever, and he's got to take it down, the noble beast that is the chicken fried steak monster. And I just started laughing, uncontrollably. I just loved that so much that I found Splice out there on the internet. It kind of, not completely, but it kind of disappeared in terms of the webcomic communities. And but I was able to back him down here with it. And I really have thought his character has been an excellent addition to the story, little tidbits here and there. You can throw some Patreon love, and you can check out the whole story to date, excluding this page here because it's not done yet. but yeah, that's that. It's been just I've loved developed I had in mind for it. So, he's a file in the rocket, and he got earlier in the story. He got like a sword through the belly. That was an exciting little tale to tell a little minute of. I enjoyed that quite. Resident healer. Elf Michelle, who is not present in the character in the available version of Broccoli Top. Originally, Broccoli Top was published on, I think, Drunk Duck back in the day, and Splice never finished it and took it on over to Comic Genesis. And that was that, so to speak. And they didn't quite catch up to everywhere. I actually coloring this at full comic book size page, and when I print them, when I publish them on the web, I actually drop them down to oh hey, Fly Fox is here. Let's add him to the stream.
What's up?
Hey man, how's it going?
Oh, it's going all right. Just drawing.
Hey, same here. Well, I'm coloring. It's not quite the same as drawing.
It's still art though, right?
I think so.
Is it art when you do it though, Rhys? I mean, that's the question.
Honestly, like it's something that I do because I think it makes the comic look more finished.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very happy when we were all black and white. But we made the decision as an editorial team that if we were going to keep doing forces, we needed to do color a number of years ago. And I thought, yeah, let's try it out. Let's see what it looks like. And it just looks so much better. And then the guy who was doing colors was like, I think I have other things I want to do with my life. And so it kind of fell to me to pick up on that. So I'm not really even a colorist. I just like everything is just pretty much flat colors. But so I'm not sure it qualifies as art. I think maybe just a craft,
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think so. People could tell me that there's something wrong with it, and I'll just say, well, then you want to color my comic for me, and see what happens then.
Right. Hopefully you'll find a new colorist.
There you go. I'll leave the ticket. That would be the ticket. That'd be a great thing.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out comic book coloring. I think it's kind of strange. Like I can paint and I can understand colors, but as soon as I go to like just do minimal colors or like anything sort of comic booky, it's like I lose all my knowledge about painting. I'm just like floundering around.
Yeah. And see, and I'm not trained. I mean, I had like classes in high school, but that's not really the same. So, um, so I don't know. I just kind of make it up as I go, and I know a little bit about color theory, the color wheel, complementarianism, all that kind of stuff, but not enough that I'd consider it to be any kind of level of skill. It's just sort of something I picked up here and there, and I do. Yeah, Ichthus, I'm streaming. If you want to jump on at the top of the chat, there's a thing. We're just Fly Fox and I are just talking the craft right now. So what are you working on tonight, man?
I'm just doodling. So I'm trying to develop this style that's reminiscent of sort of like a golden age type of comic and more cartoony looking art. And I have recently gotten some people that recognized what I was doing and commented on it. So that was good to know that it's working. But so I'm just practicing, trying to get it. And I recently finished a script for this character
which I have not read yet.
Which I sent you. Yeah, geez, what a friend.
Yeah, I did mine in. I suck. That's the bottom line. Let's take a look at it here. Let's see if we can't. Oh, wait. I dropped you. I meant to highlight you.
So
I absolutely love this.
So
this is like a Chester Gould kind of a look, man.
Yeah. So Chester Gould, CC Beck. Exactly what I was about to say was Chester Gould or CC Beck. So like
that's awesome.
Some of the first like actual comics that I read, my library had a Captain Marvel collection. And
right.
So some of the first stuff I read was CC Beck's artwork, and I don't know, it just stuck with me. So like there's that style. And then I've always been more of a cartoonist at heart rather than a comic book artist, I think. And so for me, like finding that style that works for me. So,
well, dude, I have a project that I think might be perfect for that style. It's kind of under the wraps here, so I can't talk about it right now, but we can talk off air at some time. I think it's just a little throwaway 12-page jobby, but I tell you, I think yeah.
So this character is Stephen Starlight, and he's sort of like a Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers type. And
I love it. I love it so much.
So that's something he's been an idea I've had for a really long time. I was originally going to do it and I still may, as a little radio drama. And because I loved, as a kid, I loved the old Superman radio show and the Phantom and all those, the Shadow and
Whistler.
Yeah.
Oh man, the Whistler was one of my favorites.
And like, there's so many great things, and it's really one of those things where it's unfortunate that television came along and just took it over as much as it did, because there's really not there's not a lot of it being done today. There's some, but just it's a medium that I think it's different than television. It's not the same, and it offers different benefits, and I'd like to see it make a comeback. So I may still do something with it that way. But I thought it would be perfect for a little comic book, almost like, classic serial,
Oh yeah, yeah,
movie serial or something like that, where
yeah.
it fit for shorter comic books where
That
you
is
get a little
great.
adventure and then
Well, and I mean, like one of the things that one of the things I think is really I don't want to say a shame, right? But I'm sure we'll end up talking about it tomorrow because we've got you're coming on, and I got Dan Connor coming on, and uh, he's a good guy, but he also has a lot to say about all ages books. And I know that the main topic is going to be Christianity and comics, but I guarantee you the subject of all ages books is going to come up.
yeah,
And that's something that I just really feel like um, we've been as a society that we've neglected for decades. Are in terms of finding comics to um, get the young get kids into them,
right.
and
Well,
um,
I think the sad thing is I don't go to the comic book store weekly anymore. I haven't been regularly in a comic book store in years, but every once in a while I'll go in, and went in one recently, and their all ages section was sorely lacking. Like, there was just a few things, and it was like, man, like the whole store used to be all ages when we were younger. At least you could hypothetically pick it up, and I don't think things necessarily need to be like that. But the idea that you're not even serving that demographic is absurd. Like, the most popular comics in Japan are ones meant for little boys.
right.
Shonen is like the biggest demographic for them, and it's just, you're here in America, we just don't get it. Like, it used to be about the dollar, but now it's about the social media credit, or I don't know exactly what.
Well, I think there's a lot to say for that. I think we have a big problem with the idea that it's worth taking a hit if you're supporting the cause.
Right.
Look at like like a lot of anti-American movies get made every year, and it's not because they make money; it's because they support the cause. And like there was that whole I'm going to forget the name of the thing right now, but when they had I can't remember the name of the movie, but that was during the W. Bush years. There was an American spy that got outed. Um, that was involved in the whole, uh, um, you know, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq thing. They said there's no WMDs, and come to find out that's not true. Actually, that they weren't in Iraq, but they found yellow cake that had been shipped from Iraq in Africa, from most likely from dirty bomb plants that had been dismantled. And so, and there was a spy couple that both worked for the CIA that got outed during that whole ordeal, and they I'm hitting the wrong button here, but yeah, that was all part of the scheme or whatever. So it's just crazy. There was a whole movie. My point was there was a whole movie about it.
Yeah.
And it was just a hatchet job. And they lost a ton of money, but who cares? It's all for the cause.
Right.
So, not to get too conspiratorial about it, but yeah, I'll do that a little bit.
I think what's sad is, instead of just making something good, they've totally gone into this political at all costs mentality. And
I think that's fair.
They get it. Like, the other side, if there's another side, they get it. Like they've moved on from this. Let's make something that's just a good story. They've moved on from that, and the other side, wants, well, can't we just have good stories? And it's like no, don't you get it? They've moved on. They're not thinking that way anymore. They're thinking it's an all out war. And you are what you're saying. Oh, can't we go back to when it was peaceful? But you're already being attacked.
Yeah.
So your choice is to make something good and true and right, and not try to like, well, we're gonna save the.
Well, I think that's one of the big things. I think that talking to Doug Tenable, talking to Paula Ritchie, I think that they've both these people, and even Preston has recently talked about it, coming up with this idea that you're not going to save anything at all, right? Like the only chance is coming up with our own. Like you're not going to save Batman. Batman's done. He's owned by corporate overlords. They can do what they want with him. Well, the only option is going to be is looking at making your own thing and creating alternative media, not trying to save it. And it's just like what happened with the blogosphere, 15 years ago. It wasn't about creating about saving CNN. It was about coming up with the other side of the story, and not being constrained from telling the other side of the story. And I think that's probably a more poignant path to take. Is just looking at how do we create our own thing, right? And I don't know. I've been kind of something that's been on my head lately. I mean, of course, I've kind of been wanting to. It's been sort of along my train of thought, so to speak, for I'd say probably for a year, for a decade or so, because we're trying to make our own universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things that you still up until fairly recently, even though I have all this time put into our characters and our plans and whatever else, I still held this hope that, man, wouldn't it be great to write Batman? Someday wouldn't it be great to write the Spider-Man story? To take Spider-Man in the direction he ought to be, complete the everyman journey, and to the point where he's.
I think the only point at which that even becomes feasible is when those things fall into the public domain and people can do things with them. There'll be legal battles fought at that time, but hopefully the victory will be in the advance of culture. Like, I've had this debate with people who don't believe in the public domain, and they think, well, if somebody made that character, or a corporation owns it, they should just be able to profit from it in perpetuity. And I think that by disregarding how myth and story has worked throughout time, where people gradually, like the Arthur myths, like those just don't pop out of whole cloth. Like they are grown, they're added to and developed over the course of years, and in a free way. Yeah. So like there's a reason why they still resonate today. And the Robin Hood is another one that, like, these, no one would care about these if they were still controlled by some singular company.
Right. And I think honestly, I think part of it comes to, though, is I think the public domain has a purpose, but I don't necessarily think they shouldn't have IP rights. I think that there's a way to have your cake and eat it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that, like, I guess if there's even philosophically, or in terms of my religion or whatever, I'm just one of these guys that it kind of falls into the why not both camp, predestination or free will. Yes. The answer is yes, and both of those aren't conflicting. We just think they are because our brains are small. And I think that that there is a place for public domain, and I think there's a place for copyright. And even the whole theory of scholasticism hinges upon the ability to use other people's ideas and acknowledge that there is a group ownership and all that.
Right.
And I think that's one of those things. I think that in the debate over public domain, I think sometimes people kind of forget that you can have both things can be true.
Yeah.
Where it is both.
Like I would personally be okay with some sort of compromise on the issue, but I also like
we used to have that before we had mega corporations that owned Mickey Mouse. I mean,
Right.
that's part of the reason that we have such a contention about it, is that somebody, I mean, like Zorro is technically in the public domain, but the individual iterations of Zorro aren't necessarily.
Well, yeah, and so then what has become the sad reality of the American system is you have trademark abuse. So like Zorro, John Carter, Tarzan, these are all owned by corporations as far as the trademark goes. And so then they file in my opinion, bad faith lawsuits against companies and individuals that want to tell stories with those public domain characters because they own the trademark. And so, well, you're infringing on our trademark. And then at what point does that become a manipulation or a circumvention of the point of the public domain? You might as well just get rid of it entirely and have people make, and have people own copyrights in perpetuity.
Well, and at the same time, I mean, those same systems can be really scurrilous too, right? Like, for example, one of the contracts that Walt Disney had with the estate of James Barrie was that a percentage of every sale of Peter Pan and the likeness rights to Peter Pan were to go to the Great Ormond Street Hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Walt dies and the corporation does dick with Peter Pan for 30 years until the trademark expires and they're no longer, required to give to charity, so.
Yeah. Well, and then like you see the reason why corporations like Disney, DC, Marvel, all of these companies, why they are constantly updating, constantly creating new Green Lanterns or new this or new that, or like changing costumes, is so they can continue, they can attempt to change what the public's perception of those characters are. Yep. So that by the time that those things enter the public domain, people be like, well, I don't recognize that character. Who's that?
Yeah.
And that's what they want. That's what they want to do. So why do they constantly change Superman's costume, and why do they constantly change his origin and all this stuff? Is so that they can then have the definitive version. It's what they did with Captain America, or Captain Marvel rather. Like, Captain Marvel has this origin that has been the same since the, Wiz Comics #2. And then that survived this similar origin. And then it's like, well, we don't actually own the trademark to the name Captain Marvel, so let's change his name to Shazam. And then not only that, but we're going to make sure that we give him a unique, different origin, so that then we can make a movie about it, and then that'll be what the character is in everybody's mind, so that by the time that somebody might be able to come along and make their own Captain Marvel movie, it's that's sort of a knockoff version.
A lot of with that too. I think that there's they're fighting with Marvel for supremacy and a lot of that kind of stuff too, where they actually gave away Metal. They actually gave away the fight for the character back in the 80s, and I don't understand it, because like Marvel, every Marvel version of Captain Marvel is infinitely less interesting than Billy Batson.
I know, and like I've always been a fan of the original idea for Billy Batson, was that like ultimately like Billy is not Captain Marvel. He's
Right.
almost like he's an, you know, to use a word with lots of meaning, he's almost like an avatar, he he doesn't become Captain Marvel, like he doesn't just change into some adult. He the person of Captain Marvel is someone separate. And I always sort of liked that like Billy is there and he influences Captain Marvel, but he's not ultimately the same person as Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always preferred that. Maybe it's just because that's what I first read. But any way you do it, like there's no getting around that. And I've been looking at the art for that CC Beck drew back then versus the things that were around that time, whether it was Superman or Batman. And his artwork is just so much superior to those guys that you can see why Captain Marvel became a more popular character than Superman at the time, and why why DC wanted to sue Fawcett to become, saying that it was a ripoff of Superman. You can see why they wanted to kill it, because it was just way better ultimately.
Right.
And I'm a big Superman fan. I can say it. So. Ichthus says Mickey Mouse was supposed to be open domain in 1993. Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with the extension of copyright to where it's like right now I think it's too long, and it shouldn't go any further. But I don't necessarily have a problem with the first couple of extensions they made. But it doesn't look like Disney's going to push to do it again, which will be interesting if they actually let it happen. Because
I'll tell you right now, this is cheeky, but Popeye enters into the public domain, I guarantee you I'm absorbing him into the Ideal Comics universe. He's a perfect fit, Popeye is. the idea of the paranorms and the superpowers latent within the human type is just the perfect fit. Somebody who's just tough enough to be that tough. He has to have a place to belong amongst our heroes. And also we don't have a whole lot written for that time frame either. So that just kind of gives it a bonus as far as I'm concerned.
I think that one of the sad things is because some of these characters that had value at one point, or they have like this tiny bit of value where they're making money off of their backlog, they're basically they're continuing to make money because they own stuff that people did 70 years ago.
Yep.
The masters did. But they're not doing anything of value with the characters today. Like Popeye's one that like,
well, or like Joe Palooka, the hard knock boxer character. It's just one that just doesn't get any love at all. They did a series with him. I guess probably I think it was Dynamite, and probably just to for whoever owns him, just to maintain the copyright a few years back. And it is what it is, but it doesn't. It was taking the stereotypical 1920s 1930s style boxer and just making him some generic MMA fighter, and that doesn't seem that interesting to me.
No, that sounds stupid. And
because because that was the whole thing about the Joe Palooka character, is that he was just this hard knock, hard luck kind of
Rocky before Rocky.
Yeah, exactly, and kind of stupid.
That's a classic archetype,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's such a classic deal. Simon and Garfunkel made a song about it. Know? that movie Far and Away is the same story. With Tom Cruise. I don't know how you feel about Tom Cruise, but there you go.
Cinderella Man.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where I hate to. I feel like I'm turning into a bit of like a weeb, like some sort of person that only the Japanese are so much more advanced than us. But it's not that. It's just that, like, because of the way that our comics industry went, we've lost a lot of richness of telling sports underdog stories, or like, there used to be this huge wide variety of comics. We were talking about children's comics earlier, all ages comics, and there was romance comics, like,
oh yeah,
Marvel was putting out, at the same time they were putting out superhero books, they were putting out comics for girls that were.
Yeah, and Jack Kirby in interviews actually talked about that he would make more off of the true romance comics than he ever would off superhero comics, because they sold more. So Marvel paid him more for it.
Right. Well, and then there's artists like Al Hartley, who later became famous, not famous, but like is more well known for drawing the Christian Archie comics that were made later, like all those Christian comics from the late 70s, early 80s. So like the Cross and the Switchblade adaptation and all this stuff. He worked for Marvel, and he penciled like one issue of Thor after Kirby left. Like he was the first person to pencil a Thor comic after Kirby, and it was like he just wasn't suited to it. It wasn't his strong point, and he realized that. And it's not like, if you go back and seek it and search it out, you'll see like, yeah, it's not as good as Kirby. Like, who could be at that point? Like in this new, Kirby defines the character, but he went back to doing the romance stuff for Marvel, and he was able to make that money. But today, like, I think that the focusing on superhero comics or action comics, we'll say, if you will, has ultimately led to the situation now where there are comics, romance comics being made, but they aren't selling to the average consumer anymore. Like, it's a niche thing. Like, you can go on Webtoon right now and read a bunch of free romance comics, some better than others, but that's where it's gone. Like, a free content that is making money to advertise.
There are a few exceptions to that too. You look at like Marry Me, that was put out by Keen Spot Press. It started as a webcomic, but it's made its bread. It's made bread and butter as a print comic too.
Yeah, and then there's also like more like Scholastic will put out stuff that has more of a variety, but it's a different. The big two, if you will, aren't really the big two anymore. Like, when manga has surpassed you, and
and that's one thing that, like, I got to take issue with, like, our boy Zach, right? He's just hung up on this idea that, if Marvel goes, so goes the industry. Well, I hate to break it to you, dude. The industry left Marvel like a decade and a half ago. Yeah. Like that's the thing is like, art, the characters we grew up with, maybe they're not relevant anymore, and maybe that's a problem and everything, but comics are going to keep going no matter what.
Right.
And if they're, if they have nothing to do with the heroes we grew up with. And I think that's a shame, but that doesn't mean that that's not what it is.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, like, I don't know that I agree with this method of, even though I'm perpetuating it, like this method of crowdfunding these books that take half a year, 2-3 years to get out a short book that's incomplete with an incomplete story. And like, and I think like, do I actually want to support this? Because like you go back 10 years ago and you have these guys who are doing web comics like this one, The Guns of Shadow Valley. Now this is you could go and read this comic right now online for free. It's still there. You can read the whole thing. It's complete. There's complete stories there. There's a whole complete story.
Oh, yeah.
And then they finished it and they went on to Kickstarter and they put this book out for $30. Look at this book.
Yeah.
And you're trying to sell me a floppy at 25 with an incomplete story? Like, I don't know that that's like, obviously there's different costs associated with everything. And there's a difference between having a completed web comic that you're putting out once versus trying to make, an ongoing series. But I don't know that I don't think that it's a good business model and I don't know that I would want to do it that way. Like I would feel almost guilty if I was putting out, well, definitely not yours, Tim. So Tim Lim, which books take 2+ years? Nothing you're doing, my friend. And that's like somebody like Tim is someone that I can admire because they seem to be doing it right. They're coming. He's so dedicated to making a quality book and doing it on time, getting it out to people. That
I like to tell you, like, I mean, I know
those people.
And I know, like, from personal flipping experience that, like, the thing that, you've done a million times sometimes takes longer than you expect. We've been doing Forces for a long time, but we are super behind on the Expositioner story that we crowdfunded last summer. We've had stupid problems with it. I mean, like in terms of life becoming stupid, I'm not sitting here throwing anyone under buses or anything, but life has interfered in our creative team with path in ways that I never anticipated.
Right. And I think
and so that's like when I take a look at, knowing that, and like even like this story right here, it's a that I'm coloring this Forces story. It's a 38-page story, but which if you were doing 2 pages a week, that's 3 months, right? But it's taken us more than a year to get everything together. And part of that's changing websites and all kinds of stuff. But the creative team shifting around and all kinds of stuff. So I feel for a lot of those guys that have just been in the quagmire of stuff. But I think that part of it is we need to not just accept that that's the way it is when it comes to like people taking 2-year books,
right?
And like I think like one of the things like Doug Garrett has really moved forward with pushing this, and the other guys are saying, I'm not going to crowdfund until it's done, and Tim too, Tim and Mark,
yeah. Well, I think
we're talking about that they're he's about done with the Black Ops 3. But they're not gonna put it in the wild until it's finished.
Well, you're actually delivering content on a regular basis. Basically, you have a quarterly world that or more regularly, however they're able to do it. But essentially, you have this quarterly comic book that's coming out, and okay, I can be sure that I'll order this the next month, essentially, or 2. I'm going to get this book, and you're staying engaged. And I think like one of the things that I think bothers me the most is this. It almost feels like some people have this. They think that they're entitled to make a living from comic books because they made a living from it in the past. They think they're entitled to it today. And it's like you realize that you're not, right? Like you could go get a regular job like the rest of us schmucks and have to do this in your free time. Like look at Tim. Like Tim works full time in a job, and then on the side he makes these comic books that blow just about everybody out of the water. Like, the only people that are competing with them in terms of quality, of of book and story is like someone like Doug TenNapel, who's been doing it for so long, and equally wants to put out something that is of high quality. And it's like those are the people that I think are going to last. And then the guys who are putting out a book every year or so, it's like that isn't a complete story, that it's not satisfactory. I don't see how that's a lasting thing. And I think some people are starting to see this and are going to change their ways, but who knows? Maybe I'm just a curmudgeon who can't like anything good.
Yeah, well, I think part of that comes to.
Well, that's probably the case.
Probably.
Yeah. So the metal, what are you up to today, man?
Oh, I'm supposed to be working on this manga. I just finished eating.
Hey, that's a fair use of time, man. Don't hate on yourself for eating. That's legit. Fill that belly. That's what I say.
Yeah, it was steak night.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say I'm jealous, but I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. Oh, you should be.
So I am adding a couple of details here to the costumes and stuff on this characters that got forgotten right now. This so yeah.
I've been reading Forces of Good and Evil. I started at the beginning, but I hate.
That's a scary place to start. I gotta be honest.
I
love
like
the
that.
story, but I love the story,
I think
but
it's funny, man.
It is rough.
It's funny, dude. I'm getting a kick out of it for sure. And my only issue is I hate that webcomic format on the it has not adapted well to like the phone where I have to like go down and scroll and then like click to the next thing. Sometimes I hit the wrong button and it's like it goes to the last chapter and like
Well, I thought that I'm going to look it up on my phone here. I think that we have it set up where you can just tap the picture and it auto.
Really? Maybe. Well, if that's the case, then I'm overjoyed because then I can actually read it and not get frustrated with my fat fingering the navigational tools.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna try it out on my phone here while we're waiting. Talk amongst yourselves.
Read anything good lately, Metal?
No, because I've been way too busy drawing.
Right.
Trying to get this manga done for the Tezuka manga contest by
awesome.
September, and
Awesome.
I've drawn like 20 pages in the last like 20 days.
Hey,
no time to do almost
anything.
anything.
Mangaka right there, man. Like,
oh, not even close. Like 20 pages in 2 weeks. Like, I'm slacking.
20 pages in 2 weeks. That's still a pretty good tick. And that's
some of them even 20 pages a week, depending on what the schedule is.
Well, I've been watching that show Bakuman, and that has like spurred me to like stop being lazy.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. It's by the same people that made Death Note.
Right. And they like just that even these fictional guys, they're showing like this is what it takes to get a manga made in Shonen Jump, and it takes this level of dedication. And you're like, holy crap! Like, and I'm over here just sort of like, well, someday I'll finish that comic, or someday I'll get done, or well, it's like, I better just get off my butt and start doing stuff, even if it's bad. Like, at least I'm putting something out.
Well, I'll tell you, our it's not doing that thing. So that means I need to change our coding, and I don't know how to do that. So I'll have to figure that out, because that's the way to do it. We need to have it so it'll
right.
Move on to the screen there, but just by tapping the picture. Okay, I have a to-do list item.
Because I was reading. Speaking of free comics on the internet, ElfQuest is free on whatever website those people have, but like.
Oh, really?
They have
like ElfQuest. It's a good story.
And it's one of those things where it's like can we at this point, are we still like when I have that availability of that content, that amount of content free at my fingertips at all times, like this idea that putting out a comic book every few years, or like, once a year, that's half a story or a quarter of a story, or who knows where the story's going to go. I just don't see it as
The crazy thing to me about this, that it just really comes to bad craft, I think, is the idea that you're going to tell a story that isn't a whole story. I mean, it's just like that's even an option. Like, I don't understand people that are like, oh, I'm a comics professional, you can trust me. I have, X number of years in the thing, and you're telling me a story that's 20 pages and doesn't come to completion at all, right?
there's no satisfaction. So I will say
and
this.
I mean, and I'm going to be honest. Like, okay, this story is intended to be, the one I'm coloring right now was intended to be a 24-page story. But I have 28 characters, and I wanted almost everybody to have a voice. And I realized I had to start adding more pages, right? As I'm going through the outline, I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't have anything to, the whole thing. So I had to rework the story like severely. So I get like, that part of the equation. But what I don't get is the idea that you're just like, that you're going to shoot for not finishing it before it's, of course, the webcomics aren't finished before they're released anyway, but
it's free, and if it's somebody that is dedicated, it's coming out on a regular schedule that's not a year long. Like I'm guilty of this with my webtoon thing, where basically, I have this webtoon, and because life is busy, I don't get around to actually putting out the next part. But it also it's a gag comic. It's essentially Garfield or any of those gag comics, but with an ongoing story. So like, it's satisfactory because there's a joke, there's a payoff at the end of it.
And that's one of the things with that you have to have, and if you're doing webcomics or any kind of sequential stuff, is that when that installment is done, right? And I think we do a good job of this with Forces, but when that installment is done, in this case, we do pages rather than strips, right? When that installment is done, the readers have something to look back on and be just like, yeah, that's what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted, Yeah.
Oh yeah, I try to look at it that way, because I have a long-running story with an overall arc that I am getting to eventually. But I try to have every single chapter to be a self-contained story that you can enjoy on its own, whether you read the chapter before it or after. And each page kind of has to be enjoyable on its own as well. So it's got to have like a gag or some point to the individual page.
You've got to be able to have those characters speak in a way that's going to bring that reader back. And it's one of those things where, like, when you're plotting a comic, right, for traditional print, you know that every odd page is a page turner. You've got to have some sort of sting, some sort of something that's going to make the people want to flip that page over. And when you're doing webcomics, every single entity has got to feel like a page turner, whether it's excitement, whether it's humor, whatever it is.
And I think people, they look back at the past and they say, well, there was this serialized form of storytelling, but what they're not doing is telling things in a serialized format. They don't have good cliffhangers. They're not making, like, go back to the old television, the old movie serials, and like, you literally, why is it called the cliffhanger? Because the character would be hanging off a cliff. How does he get out of this situation? And there's not like, there's a place for like that type of a serial. But when you're trying to tell this long dramatic story, you have to have a complete thought.
Yes.
In your 24, 26, however long your books are, your pages, there has to be a complete thought, at least, or it was worthless for me to pick it up. And that's my problem with like the modern decompressed storytelling format. Some people do it right, and they know what that's like. They're masters, but then other ones, like, it's not a satisfying story. You didn't have the complete thought. You basically just found a point to cut off the story, and then make us have to wait for the conclusion. And that's not the point. The point is like, okay, they got out of that predicament. Now they're in this new predicament. How are they going to get out of that?
Right. And that actually
Oh,
reminds me of specifically reminds me, I'm going to drop a name here of Tom King and his whole Batman storyline, right?
Uh-huh.
The whole thing. And, you know, I know some people like it, some people don't. I'm not talking about that. But when Batman 50 came out and Catwoman walked away and left him at the altar, right? And his first reaction was, guys, it's a 100-issue story arc. You know, give it some time, right? You just got to trust me. It's going to be awesome, right?
Right.
And my response to him is, if you know, if a girl be what I did, what you did to Batman, and said, just wait, it's going to be fine, I would be a chump. You kind of write Batman like a chump.
Like I just
got I have no patience for somebody who wants to treat Batman like a chump, for lack of a better way to say it.
I mean, I don't think Batman's been written well since way before my lifetime. So,
Well, I mean, I think there's been moments. James Tynion the Fourth had some good ones. Peter Tomasi's had some good ones. Chuck Dixon, excellent stuff. And what year were you born? I know you're kind of a kid, but
91.
91. Yeah, there was before you learned to read, there was a lot of good Batman stories. Alan Grant, Doug Monk, you know, of course Dixon. Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff that was happening then. But I will say that, like, after Denny left, the writing quality of Batman just really fell through the floor. That's not even in question, I don't think. Clean through the floor. It was ugly. But
Well, I think someone like so this is a book I got recently in the mail that I have a lot of good things to say about. Like I don't have much negative. Basically, Brian Shearer is a great writer of comic books and artist, and the book is quality. The colors are nice, rich. The printing is great. But I do think it was one of those things where I was a little bit underwhelmed by the time I got to the end of it, and I saw where the breaking point was for the story. And I think, like, I know Brian is going to be delivering that book. You know,
did you die there? What happened?
Did I die?
No, I heard the whole thing.
Oh, I died. Okay.
Yeah, it was you. So, like,
it was me.
I like the book, and I'm glad I bought it. But part of me thinks, like, at what point do I just wait for book 2? You know, do I only back book 2 because I want a complete story? And it's not as bad on Gunship Thunder Punch, but on some of these books, because it's quality, and he's actually a good writer with a grasp of storytelling that, like, a lot of people don't have. I'm glad I purchased it, but at some point, like, it makes me think, should I just, if I know this is going to be a multi-part story, like, should I just wait for book 2 to come out? Like, should I wait for the trade? You know, the same problem that
I think that's a real concern with a lot of this kind of stuff. I think and I think it's one of those things where you look at, like, you know, well, actually, you look at the books that Tim and Mark have been putting out. Every single one of them, they add on to this huge universe that they're building, but every one of them feels like a finished thing.
Yeah.
You know? And that was one thing with, like, when they first did Black Ops, it was, you know, part 1, part 2, Buns of the Patriots, and they left off kind of at a cliffhanger. And I thought each side held up to its, you know, on its own self. But at the same time, it was thank you for joining us, Flying Saucer. But wait for the hardcover omnibus.
But if everybody waits for the hardcover omnibus, will it ever make it far enough to deserve an omnibus?
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's
But here's the
exactly
thing:
right.
is when everyone has an omnibus, nobody has an omnibus.
Right, and that's the point. Is like that should make people want to make sure that they're telling that every issue is satisfactory. Like I get wanting to tell an epic story, but you need to make sure that individual parts of it are individually satisfactory.
Yes.
And so then it's just a matter of changing how you're writing stuff and like and making sure that you're putting as much effort into it as you can.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing is like I said, I was talking about, Tim and Mark is they've gotten it down how to tell those engaging pieces that are part of a greater whole, right? And and then I think there's other things too. You look at like I don't know if you guys follow the Rags guys, that story or not, but they Brian and I can't remember the cat's name. Anyway, they do a really good job of having each issue have so much weight that it really leaves you hanging for the next one, right? That idea of the story that makes you want to come back for the next issue. They've really got that down in spades. That serialized thing we were talking about earlier, how it really serialized. And each issue has a different feel too, even though there's a lot of similar elements. It's part of a collective whole. Each issue is a separate signpost along the road of what's her name? Regina's journey. So also for those of you out there in the world, if you don't mind a little bit of semi-tasteful nudity, then check out Rags. It's an amazing book.
Well, do they still have the censored version for people who want that?
Yeah, it's available. Well, they have it. Anything published through Antarctic is censored.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that they're going to have any censored that they have through their Patreon.
Yeah.
And I do know that Brian was originally saying that the second volume wasn't going to be going through. They didn't think it was going to be going through Antarctic, but I think that Antarctic made them an offer they couldn't refuse. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just reading between the lines of some of Brian's posts. But Brian also is a grade A shit poster, so it's sometimes really hard to read fact from fiction on that one.
Yeah, I remember supporting it back on what's that site that's closed now? Comic Central.
Oh yeah,
So I
yeah,
have like
that's
digital
right.
versions of it.
Yeah, I got the digital of the first one too, and the first Wand Pool on there, and we were actually Ideal Comics was on there for a spell. Gave away some free books. Never sold a book there, but
I sold a few.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just suck at selling things. No one ever wants to buy from me. I don't know what to make of that. But
It's weird too. It's odd how you can end up selling a book that people can just go and read for free.
yeah, well, and our stuff. We don't. When we first started the company way back in the day, we actually made it a point that we don't sell anything we've given away. We've got some stuff that we've had as special features on the website that's going to end up being like a colored version.
Yeah.
For example, if when the second Corona Kings drops, we're going to have a Rapunzel story that I wrote and we had done with Carlos Rodriguez, who's also doing Otis Stein with Skinny, and it's going to be awesome. But it's just black and white. It's just a real thing. I'm gonna color that puppy, and it's going to be we're going to sell it as a digital exclusive colored.
Yeah.
but and it'll be 50 cents for the 8 or 12 pages or whatever it was. I can't remember how many pages it is right now. I wrote it, but I don't remember. I should remember, but I don't. So, what do you do? What do you do?
I don't know. I just know that I add pages though when I sell this stuff, so it's not like you're just getting exactly what's available in the webcomic.
Right.
It'll be like character pages and bonus content and stuff. But if it was the physical print that was selling, I would get that because, like, okay, you can't read this in your hands like you can a comic on the website. But the thing that sells the most is the Comixology version. And even in the description, it says that this is a chapter from a webcomic. So you'd think if you're really interested, you would just go Google search the name and read the comic for free. Yeah, it just baffles me.
That is an interesting little conundrum you've discovered, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But I'm not going to complain as long as it keeps putting money in my bank account.
Yeah. So when you format those things for Comixology, how is that different from how you were formatting the print version?
It really isn't. All I do is submit a PDF like I'm going to for submitting print. They do the guided view and everything themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why it takes like anywhere between 2 to 6 months, depending on how backlogged their schedule is, for your thing to show up on there.
Huh. Well, then I might try to get our anthology on.
Totally.
Zing 1 and 2. I mean, I want to, before we go to print again, we've got a few copies for cons and stuff that are left. But before we go to print again, it's everything's going to be colored for our anthology. And I'm going to try to find somewhere I can get them printed super cheap, like keep the price point low. But I don't know if we'll do that or not. But yeah, I don't want another print copy, but I want them available for people because there's worse stuff than that.
Yeah, and they've got pretty good price control. Like everything's fixed at like a 99-cent amount, but you can kind of pick which one you want. Even larger things, you could put it down to $1 if you think it's only worth $1. You could put it up to like 10 if you think it's worth 10. Whatever. And basically all you do is you format everything. You can use any page layout thing for a PDF. I use Scribus, however you want to pronounce it. And you put the cover first and then every single page.
Mm-hmm.
And they walk you through the process. It's really simple. I've put everything up there so far that I have.
Huh. That's fascinating.
Yep, but that's me. Anytime I'm like, hey, how can I get this to go as far as possible? I'm just sitting there researching things for like nights on end. I'm everywhere. You can find my stuff like literally everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an important avenue to take too, because I think a lot of it is, I know with me, I just my passion is just the creation, and I'm so far behind with projects that I want to do that I'm just like, anytime I spend doing the ancillary stuff, I feel like I'm not getting the storytelling done, you know?
Yeah. No, I understand.
And I'm just, and I know that's like stupid. I'm fully aware that that's not a good way to go.
Well, especially if you're the writer, right?
Yeah.
And while it does take a lot of effort to write, believe me, I know. I also have a novel up on Amazon. You kind of have to be the marketeer as well when you're the writer, because you have to leave the artist to have as much time as possible.
Well, and part of the thing is I end up doing a lot of like this stuff, like
coloring too. Yeah.
Because I mean, part of it is like the artists that I'm working with, you know, they're for forces, they're working for free. They're working for the love of the project, you know.
Yeah.
Or their love of me. Like I said earlier, one of the artists is my son Tolly, and I love projecting with him, working projects with him. It's great, but you know, school comes first. You know, I'm a homeschool dad too, so school comes first, and so there's little details that, like, he's like, okay, I'm done. And there's little details he gets wrong.
then well, then it's to the drawing board. You know. Okay, you're done. That's good. I'll take over from here.
Like,
Oh, yeah, man. You want to talk about struggling for having time to get everything done? I'm kind of a one-man army.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think that if anyone misunderstood, just to clarify, that Brian is worth supporting on these individual books, and ultimately, Gunship Thunder Punch was worth having. But I think it's an epidemic with others more so than Brian.
He should totally unblock me on Twitter, though.
Did he block you? What'd you do to him?
I didn't do anything. Like literally, I think I interacted with him once saying I liked the comic, and that was it. I think I just got caught up during his big blocking storm.
Could be.
Which Brian?
Actually, which one are we talking about?
I just realized there's two Brians in play here. Brian.
Yeah, we
Shearer.
were talking about Rags at first.
Oh yeah, I was talking about Shearer.
Okay. But the Brian from Rags needs to unblock me. I don't
Yeah.
think Shearer has ever blocked me.
I was like, I didn't think Shearer did, but like Brian Ball went through and blocked a bunch of people about a year and a half ago, and he's been unblocking people if they get a hold of him or ask someone to get a hold of him. So I'll shoot him a message.
Cool.
I've been bugging him to come back on the show again. I don't know if he will or not, but I'm bugging him to come back on the show. But he's wanting to get the first volume of Rags all in the can before he starts doing a lot of appearances again, which I think is actually the way to go, because like I said, I mean, like issue 6 left at like such a huge cliffhanger. It's a make or break moment for that book. It'll either be pulled off and be perfect, like the perfect comic book, kind of perfect, or it's ruined. I mean, there's no middle ground with it. They left the stakes so high on it, and I think they will pull it off. I have full confidence in that. But yeah, there's no middle ground for that story. It's either going to be perfect or it's going to be awful.
All right, well, I think we're about to eat dinner, so I will bid you guys adieu.
Yeah. I actually got to go take a buddy to the grocery store, so that's a really good time for me to sign off too. Guys, thanks for coming on. This whole thing made this page. I'm not done, but it made it go a little faster, I think. So I appreciate you coming on and letting me chat at you. And
It's a nice short little conversation on my part.
yeah. Well, you know, it's not like I had it super scheduled. I kind of talked about it.
Yeah.
A little bit, and then that was that. So I appreciate the time it took to come on. So
yeah,
and we will catch you guys around the world. And for those of you guys who are in the chat, I appreciate you guys sticking out. Oh hey, a Flying Officer said my wife gifted me Gun Pitch Thunder Punch and a sketch, so we're supporting him through the story arc. So good job. I love his mech designs. They're amazing. Okay, I'm going to call it. Thanks for tuning, and we will catch you all on the flip side.
bye.
Chat.